All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA, and today I'm going to be talking about the Golden State Stimulus for those of you who live here in California. I usually don't do state-specific stuff because obviously that only applies to a small portion of my audience, namely those who live in whatever state I'm talking about. But enough people in my audience have been asking me about the Golden State Stimulus, and I live in California as well, so I thought I would give a nod to this and to the recent announcement that Governor Newsom made and create this short video for you. So some of you may have already seen Governor Newsom's announcement from Monday, May 10th, where he outlined the California Comeback Plan. In this plan is an expansion of the Golden State Stimulus payment, so I thought I'd make a quick video explaining what we know about this and who can expect to receive a payment if they didn't receive a payment last time for the Golden State Stimulus. Now, just for context here, the original round of payments was signed into law in February. They included $600 for people who received the California Earned Income Tax Credit for 2020, plus an additional $600 for people with incomes under $75,000 who have ITINs, taxpayer identification numbers, right, which would have prevented them from receiving the federal stimulus because they didn't have a social. So if you were eligible, you should have received that $600 earlier this year if you were in one of those categories, or $1,200 if you were in both. You had to live in California for more than half of 2020. You had to be a California resident on the date the payment was issued, and you could not have been eligible to be claimed as a dependent by somebody else. That plan, that initial kind of outworking of this also included a separate $600 for those enrolled in CalWORKs, SSI/SSP, or CAPI. That was the Golden State Grant Program. There were some other forms of direct and indirect relief for small businesses, childcare, community college, etc. Now, that was initially meant to be the full set of direct payments. At that time, there wasn't really any reason to think that there would be an expansion of the Golden State Stimulus in terms of stimulus payments, but California ended up running a budget surplus of $75 billion, which obviously gave them a lot more room to expand eligibility for these stimulus checks. So let's talk about the governor's recent announcement. There will be a link in the description to this for those of you who want to check it out for yourself. But the part I want to highlight is the expansion of direct payments beyond the groups that initially received them. Okay, so after this change, if this change passes, roughly 2 out of every 3 Californians will be eligible for direct payment, and all taxpayers with incomes under $75K should get $600, assuming they didn't already receive a first payment. On top of that $600, there will also be $500 payments for undocumented families and families with dependents. To be clear, that's $500 per family, not $500 per dependent. So the maximum payment will be $1,100 for people who are below the income limit, qualify for the additional $500, and didn't receive an initial $600. Now, at this point, this expansion of the Golden State Stimulus is just a proposal by Governor Newsom. The state legislature still needs to vote on the recovery package, but I think the odds are fairly good that something like this expansion will pass. So I can't tell you exactly when the checks will start going out, but I'll keep an eye on this story, of course, and if I hear something about the timeline, I'll be sure to keep you informed. So as I mentioned, these direct payments are just one part of the California Comeback Plan, which is essentially the state's version of the American Rescue Plan. The recovery package contains a total of $100 billion in spending. The cost of these checks is estimated at around $12 billion. So obviously there's a lot more than just the checks that's going into this legislation. Another key aspect of the comeback plan is renter assistance. This includes $5.2 billion to help low-income renters cover back rent and future rent, plus an additional $2 billion to cover overdue utility and water bills. So that accounts for around $20 billion of the total price tag of $100 billion. Of course, this all comes in the context of the California gubernatorial recall election, which is coming up later in 2021, where Gavin Newsom could lose his job. Based on the latest data, though, Newsom currently has a buffer of around 11 points, so it looks like he should probably be safe. But I think most of us know to be a bit wary of political polls at this point, right? Now, I'm not a politician, I'm not a strategist, but one thing I can tell you is that if you're on the hot seat like Governor Newsom is, it can't hurt to free up some cash to pay your constituents in the months leading up to that election. I would actually say it puts even more pressure on the other side. Republicans in California and around the country have been talking about, we're giving out too much aid, we gave out too much aid last year, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not sure that they'll be willing to stand in the way of direct payments to most of their constituents at such an important time. Republican State Senator Andres Borges quickly responded to the announcement. He issued a statement reading, "The governor's use of unanticipated revenue for one-time investments may give Californians a short-term boost from the pandemic, but many of these programs are unsustainable and impractical in the long run. California taxpayers are funding the billions of dollars in hashtag recall rebates being distributed by the governor, instead of throwing around billions and at speeds where accountability and efficacy processes remain unquestionable. I would encourage the governor to focus on long-term sustainable strategies to solve our state's issues surrounding homelessness, housing affordability, education, water infrastructure, economic growth, and wildfires. Obviously, this is more than just about politics. The government had a big budget surplus. It was probably a decent way to use it. And there's actually something called the GAN rule in California that requires the government to return a portion of this kind of budget surplus back to the taxpayers. Of course, the other side will say, well, this isn't fair. I mean, many of the individuals receiving this benefit probably paid very little taxes relative, right, to those who make more than 75 grand a year. But in any case, it is a good look for Governor Newsom to be able to announce these checks, or a proposal for more checks for more people, this expansion that nobody was really expecting until just a few weeks ago. It's a good look for him. Still too early to tell whether this is going to have an impact on his polling numbers. Again, he's in a decent position right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if his approval starts to creep even higher if and when this gets approved and people get those checks and everything else that's included in this proposal. As I said, this is currently just a proposal from Governor Newsom. Nothing has been voted on yet with respect to this expansion of the Golden State stimulus, so I will of course let you know if that bill makes it through the legislature or if there are any hang-ups that could delay those payments or even threaten the entire bill. As always, I want to thank you for watching to the end. I really do appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time.